out of chaos. And the idea is that with the influence of powerful forces behind the scenes, you can bring order out of the chaos that we see. We know, for instance, that
order underneath even chaos.
Grew up in Davis, California, college town, about an hour away from San Francisco. Was born in San Jose, so I've always lived in the same kind of 50-mile radius, 60-mile radius.
I grew up in Oxford and left there when I was 17, moved here. But I've worked in London since I was about 14, through the weekends and the holidays, working record shops and stuff. I remember the first sort of records I got really into, which were the electro, street sounds kind of compilations, which again compiled, electro tracks from the 80s.
For myself, Grandmaster Flash, On the Wheels of Steel, was an important record for me. Also, The Message, basically New York hip-hop.
Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose.
Then, a few years later, West Coast hip-hop.
What's up?
Hip-hop from all over the world, including England, starting from about 87. There was the Cookie Crew. Well, of course, Derek B.
Well, the first time you heard my voice, you were rocking to the rhythm.
I was actually reading NME and a magazine called Soul Underground, because they dealt with hip-hop and no American magazines did.
MoWax began nearly 5.5 years ago. It was started as just an outlet for music that was being made by friends and by people that I'd met around the world. I wanted a more underground kind of label, which was, I suppose at that point in time, it came out the sort of end of the acid jazz era, and the point when Talking Loud was, at the fridge, and been DJing a lot more sort of jazz and funk and hip hop and stuff. And then it just grew really from there, just through the people that I met and friends of mine, and to build a sort of cultural label, which, for just to express ourselves in, whether it was musically or visually, or that's really where it's come from.
Insight, foresight, more sight. The clock on the wall reads midnight.
I obviously wasn't aware of MoWax, because I think at that time you put out a couple records, and I wasn't familiar with that sort of genre, which at that time was acid jazz, and but I just thought, well, MoWax was an opportunity for me to continue to, I had this thing when I first started making records in '91 where I wanted each record to be different from the last. And most labels, and especially as hip-hop became more conservative, it didn't allow that kind of freedom, and it didn't allow for that kind of experimentation. Introducing was a statement that I felt like I had to make personally, and I had to do it on my own. I had to do everything on my own, because I wanted to learn. After doing that record, then, the most important thing for me to do, I felt like, was to emerge out of the studio, out of this hole, and let the light shine in, and work with other people and be inspired by other people. Onion was my attempt to fill in what I felt like was the only sound I didn't really get to achieve fully on Introducing. I literally finished introducing, it was mastered June of '96, and we started working like July of '96.
Started in '95. I mean, it's taken a longer time, I think, for me than it has for Josh, in the sense of when the original idea of Unkle started, because I was originally working with other people. And I think there was, because there was a lot of hype at that point in time that there was a record bit coming out, people have expected it for a long time, and that's why people are like, oh, it's taking so long to make it. And really, with the record we've made now, the beginning of that started in the summer of '96. And then for the last year, when we got back together, we've had to kind of see each other, then go away, come back, go away, come back, as Josh has had his own career to deal with you know, the DJ Shadow solo stuff, and I've been doing MOAX. And just time to think about exactly what you want to do, and the logistics of the people working on the record, waiting for people to being able to perform, or tracking people down. And I think, like, really the last year has been when most of the vocal work's been done. Three songs were recorded in '95, and then the rest have been recorded in the last year. When I originally went to record the Unkle album, I just got very concerned that it was going to become very much of the time, and that was something that was, it just really freaked me out. So I just needed time to go away and think about it again, exactly what it was I wanted to achieve on it. It's always important that to me, that there's something really individual, that it's just not running with the pack, you know. And that's what I needed to find, that's what I needed to sort of piece together. And then, you know, the involvement of Josh, just working out when that was going to happen and what was going on with what he was doing, and, you know, just a lot of things going on. But it's all good, you know. I think it works out for the best, to be honest. When I heard History, it was the first time for a long time that I had heard an English male voice that just kind of gave me that same feeling that I got when I heard something like the Stone Roses. It kind of didn't, it felt so much more than just, when, you know, people always go, you know, how do you feel about working with rock and roll artists or anything like that? And just, to me, the people that we work with and those kind of, the singers within the album, it didn't really feel to me like you were entering into rock and roll. It was just the best singer-songwriter that I'd heard in a long time. And with him, and the same with Tom, it was just a very kind of emotional experiences through the music. I was feeling very angst at the time, and just hearing Richard singing on that track, there was a very spiritual kind of angst to it for me, and that was the thing you know, that just clicked and made this, you know, made me think about what I wanted to do with this record.
I remember when, in '96, when we sort of, me and James had a conversation, and it was sort of discussed that, well, why don't we try this again, you know? James was saying, you know, I've learned a lot, can we try and do this again? And at that time, he was saying, I want to work with these people, who at the time was Alice Temple, Tom York, and Richard Ashcroft. And in all of those cases, I'd just be like, okay, cool, sounds good. But until, you know, you're actually in the studio working, you don't know if it's going to work or not.
It was probably the most interactive session we had in the whole album, because it was the longest period of time we spent with anybody. And we recorded in this really beautiful studio up in the hills just outside San Francisco, in just near Mill Valley, right?
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful looking over just like over a valley with just birds and trees and just beautiful skies. And it was just a really, I don't know, it was just a spiritual kind of day in the studio, you know. 2 days.
It was the first time that we both kind of felt like this, you know, this might work. you know, I felt like, okay, James, I think I see where you're going with this.
And you do it to yourself.
I think I was at a certain level where I really needed to, you know, really sort of work with someone in a real interactive, very close way. And that's what that session sort of gave me, was the feeling that, you know, it did feel good to work with other people, and that, you know, some of my best work could come from that, rather than sort of trying to be some kind of studio messiah.
There were too many of us. We had access to too much money, too much equipment, and little by little we went insane.
Was there one incident during the recording of the album when both of you just at the same time put your hands up and went, man, enough of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was around March of this year. I mean, the closer you get towards it coming out, the more difficult it becomes to make decisions as you go, because you've got a body of work that exists that you want to be faithful to, and every subsequent addition that you make to the record becomes more and more painstaking. So, and, you know, also just logistically, because there's so many people involved, and so many managers involved, and so many labels involved, and lawyers involved, so it's frustrating. But it's not supposed to be, you know, I don't want, when people listen to the record, I don't want them to be conscious of, oh, they must have made this because he was mad at this person, and this, you know, this isn't rumors, you know what I mean?
So great art isn't necessarily the extent to which you suffer.
What?
I asked Futura to, I mean, I've always been obsessed by his characters. It's something I've been into for a long time. And when I did the first Unkle record, I managed to get these paintings off him, which contained two of these characters, which became the logo, which is the characters in the triangle. And when it came to this album, I wanted the opportunity to sort of build a world and build an identity which wasn't based on me and Josh's, you know, our faces or whatever. And
obvious reasons.
From one of the most acclaimed novels of our time.
What went on out there that day?
Easily one of the best films of the year.
I'll stand by you. Was I right to bring her hair away from what's familiar?
Is Robert Redford's The Horse Whisperer.
Do whatever you have to do to hold on.
A moving, heartfelt epic, an unforgettable love story.
I never expected to feel this way.
Robert Redford, Kristen Scott Thomas, The Horse Whisperer.
Endlich ist sie da. Hard and Happy. Die Mega-Party-Hardcore-CD. Hart, schnell, happy. Hard and Happy. Die Hardcore-CD. Jetzt im Handel.
Wenn auch Sie nicht genug kriegen können. Großes Titanic-Gewinnspiel mit 1000 Preisen. Nur ein TV-Spielfilm.
Get the web on tap. Carlsberg.com. Probably the best tap in the world.
No matter what they tell us, no matter what they do, no matter what they
Boyzone, their massive hit single, No Matter What. Out now.
is true.
Fragilette. The magic of Fragilette.
don't need. Yeah.
That was hot. Now dig this.
Guns blazing. You want us to describe it? All right, Guns Blazing features Cool as You Rap on vocals, who Cool as You Rap is the only person on the record that I specifically recruited. To me, his voice, his timing, what he's saying, I always really admired him.
It's like our little, you know, it's our theme. It's the song. You know, it's the opening titles, the credits, whatever. You know, trying to explain a little bit of what we're about in a kind of just entertaining way, I think.
Bloodstain was a really fun song to make. I thought it was going to be difficult, but musically it was fun to just try and create a structure that didn't have that. You know, there's the middle part. There's a little part where it kind of goes off, and it reminds me of the middle part of Whole Lotta Love, and that's not meant to say that it's as good as Whole Lotta Love, but that's what it reminded me of. And it was, there's just little on every song. There's little production techniques and little things that I sort of smile about that probably nobody else will recognize or know or care. But for me, it made it, you know, helped make the record fun to do.
It's a classic Shadow moment. How do you feel?
It's also one of the oldest songs on the record.
There was just a need, I think, you know, that with Unreal and Celestial Annihilation, it's important on records to have breaks where it's just instrumental.
God knows you lonely souls.
That song, I think we're both pretty proud of.
Like it was for us. It was definitely a benchmark thing for the record because it set the record up to know that we could achieve possibly what we set out to do.
I believe there's a time and a place to let your mind drift and get out of this place.
And it, you know, it has Will Malone who did all the strings for Unfinished Sympathy, which was one of my favourite songs. And there was just this moment when Richard came into the studio. Josh had put down his beat, strings, and the bass line, and the bass line sort of extended out. And Richard kind of ad-libbed over this bass line, and we sat down, and you know, we were sitting there going, let's just make this go off, take this further, you know. Make it into a string piece, extend these strings, and we sat with Will, and he went away and came up with this amazing piece of music. And it's just the kind of journey. It's like it's essentially the middle section of the record. It kind of takes you from, you know, where you'd been before halfway through into the next phase. And it was definitely a really spiritual moment for me.
And it definitely had the most man hours. I mean, that was definitely the most difficult song on the record, I think.
You're a ball buster.
I mean, it's just, you know, represents some of our frustrations that we had, but it doesn't really, it's really just meant as a little bit of light relief, you know.
Ball buster.
I wasn't the ball buster. I hope not. Features a guy called Badly Drawn Boy. He put out a couple of independent 7-inches that I heard. He's from Manchester. And I just really like his attitude and his songs and his records, and it there was a moment where I really wanted somebody that was completely fresh and new and people didn't know about instantly, and somebody for people to discover. I'm the breather. Don't want to hear me breathing after I've been smiting.
Oh, yeah. No, and I also had to edit out all the wheezing. There was only about 5 clean breaths in about 4 minutes of dat tape, so I had to actually piece together the clean breaths. I was trying to make you sound good. That was the very last song to be mixed and finished, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Will Malone had done a orchestral piece for James, where James had asked him to just compose, you know, a symphony like they would back in the day. I guess they still do. And he did that, but there was this aspect of music that we liked that we hadn't really touched on. You know, I grew up listening to a lot of Miami bass, etc. So got this Miami bass 808 beat, and I was looking for a piece of music to put over the top of it, and I noticed the TP sitting there, and I just tried it as I would any record, you know, that I grabbed that I'm looking for a sample on, and it happened to work.
It came out of, you know, hooking up with Mike, and that was one of the last vocal songs to be done, right? It was the last, but he sent vocals from New York when we were in San Francisco. Originally it was just like a beat and a guitar. And then Josh was looking for a bass line, and we couldn't really find a bass line that fitted in the song, right?
Yeah, I couldn't, you know, sometimes you just can't find the right sample. So we were in San Francisco, and I was trying to think of who was local that I liked, and I do like Metallica. I liked from Master of Puppets on. That's when I got into them. And, you know, they're local, and we weren't going to use Journey. We weren't going to use Huey Lewis and the News. So, and we weren't going to use Starship. So Metallica was sort of the natural first choice.
Atlantic has this great spirit and soul to her. She's very sort of deep, and it was just great to be able to use it on the album. So we went through tapes and decided to work on this one song that she'd recorded instead of recording a new song, and really just enhance that song rather than overproduce it, and have a song on the album which was just a complete departure from anything else. It was just totally a breath of fresh air in space, you know.
Learn to fly.
For me personally, it was rewarding. It's one of my favorite moments on the record.
I'm a rabbit in your headlights, scared of the spotlight. You don't come to visit. I'm stuck in this bed.
Black suede.
She laughs when she's crying. She cries when she's laughing. Fat bloody fingers are sucking your soul.
Sì, questo. Risorso c'è full mismano. Risorso. Is bad and not, but is.
I'm a rabbit in your headlights.
I'm coming. I'm sorry.
Hey, mate! Where you going? Where you going, mate? Hey?
Breathe, breathe, sí, Cristo.
Anywhere nice? You anywhere nice? Mate! Where you going?
Sí, Cristo. Easy.
Nice coat, man.
أنا صار وزنك متأجل. أنا صار متأجل. أنا صار.
Christian